My son secretly sold my late husband's beloved car to vacation in Paris, until I got a call. She woke up every morning before the sun, not because she needed to, but because her body no longer knew how to sleep late. The house was always quiet at that hour. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that settles into the walls and stays there, even when you try to fill it with noise. She would lie in bed for a few moments, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. It had been there for years. Her husband had bought it on a small trip they once took together. She never liked the sound, but now she could not imagine the room without it. Hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you never miss our latest uploads. She moved slowly, careful with her knees as she sat up. Age had made every motion feel planned and measured. Nothing was quick anymore. She slipped her feet into the same old slippers she had worn for years and stood up, steadying herself on the edge of the bed. The other side of the bed was neat and untouched. She kept it that way on purpose. It felt wrong to change it, like erasing something important. The mornings followed the same pattern every day. She washed her face with cool water, brushed her hair, and tied it back loosely. The mirror showed her a face she knew well but did not always recognize. Lines had formed slowly over the years, each one marking time, worry, laughter, and loss. Her eyes still looked sharp, though tired. They held stories she never told out loud. In the kitchen, she prepared her tea the way she always had. 1 cup, not 2. That had been one of the hardest habits to change. For years, she had poured 2 cups without thinking. Even after he was gone, her hands sometimes reached for the second cup. When she noticed, she would pause, feel the sting in her chest, and quietly put it back. She sat at the small table by the window, watching the street slowly wake up. A man walked his dog. A woman jogged past with headphones on. A child waited for the school bus, kicking small stones on the road. Life continued, moving forward without asking if she was ready to move with it. After breakfast, she cleaned the dishes right away. She liked things neat. A clean house made her feel in control, even when so much else felt uncertain. She wiped the counters, swept the floor, and straightened the cushions on the couch. Every object had its place, just as it always had. There was one door she rarely opened. The door to the garage. It stayed closed most days, like a silent agreement between her and the past. Inside that garage sat the car. The classic car her husband loved more than anything, with wheels and an engine. He had spent years working on it, polishing it, fixing small details no one else would notice. To him, it was more than metal and paint. It was pride, passion, and patience. She remembered how his eyes would light up whenever he talked about it. He would explain things she barely understood, using his hands to show how parts moved and fit together. She would nod, smile, and listen, because his happiness mattered to her. She never learned to drive it herself. He always said he would teach her one day. That day never came. Sometimes, when the house felt too empty, she would open the garage door just a little. Not all the way. Just enough to see the car resting there under its cover. Dust had gathered on the shelves around it, but the car itself remained protected. She had not touched it since the day he passed. It felt sacred, like a memory frozen in time. Standing there, she would feel a mix of comfort and pain. Comfort because it reminded her of him. Pain because it reminded her that he was gone. She never stayed long. After a few minutes, she would close the door again and return to the house, her heart heavy but calm in a strange way. Her days were simple. She read books in the afternoon, mostly old novels she had read before. New stories felt like too much effort. She liked knowing how things would end. It made her feel safe. Sometimes she watched television, though she often forgot what she had watched by the next day. It was not about the shows. It was about the sound filling the room. Her son called once or twice a week. Their conversations were polite and caring, but careful. He asked how she was feeling, if she needed anything. She always said she was fine. She asked about his work, his family, his plans. He shared enough to be respectful, but not enough to feel close. They loved each other, she knew that. But love changed shape over time. When he was young, she knew everything about his day. What he ate, what scared him, what made him laugh. Now, his life belonged to him, and hers belonged to quiet routines and memories. Sometimes he visited on weekends. He would sit on the couch, scrolling on his phone, while she prepared snacks in the kitchen. They talked about small things. The weather. The neighbors. Repairs around the house. Neither of them mentioned the car. Neither of them mentioned her husband. The silence around those topics felt safer than opening wounds they did not know how to heal. She noticed that her son often glanced toward the garage door when he visited. His eyes would linger there for a moment before he looked away. She wondered what he was thinking. Maybe he saw the car as an object. Something valuable. Something unused. She saw it as a piece of her heart. In the evenings, she sat in her favorite chair with a blanket over her legs. She listened to the sounds of the house settling, the distant noise of traffic, the soft hum of the refrigerator. Sometimes she talked out loud, not to anyone in particular. Just small comments, as if someone was listening. It made the space feel less empty. Before bed, she walked through the house, turning off lights, checking doors, making sure everything was secure. The routine gave her comfort. It reminded her that she was still capable, still in control of her life. In the bedroom, she placed her husband's old watch on the night table, where it had always been. It no longer worked, but she kept it there anyway. She lay down on her side of the bed, facing the window, and closed her eyes. Sleep came slowly. Thoughts drifted in and out. Memories of laughter, arguments, long drives, quiet evenings. She did not fight them. She let them pass like clouds in the sky. Her life was not exciting. It was not loud or busy. But it was hers. Built from love, loss, and endurance. Each day was a careful balance between holding on and letting go. And though she did not say it out loud, she knew that something, somewhere, would eventually disturb this quiet life. She just did not know when, or how. The garage had always been more than a place to park a car. For her, it was a quiet room filled with echoes of a life shared. The smell inside never really changed. Oil, old cloth, metal, and something warm she could never quite name. Every time she stepped inside, it felt like stepping into a memory that still breathed. The car sat there patiently, covered, waiting. It had waited for years while he worked on it little by little, after work, on weekends, during holidays when others rested. He never rushed it. He said good things took time, and this car was a good thing. She used to tease him about it, asking if he loved the car more than her. He would laugh and say the car was only special because it reminded him of her. They had bought it long ago, when money was tight and dreams were bigger than their savings. It was not in perfect condition back then. The paint was dull, the engine tired, the seats worn. Most people would have walked away. He saw potential. She saw worry. But she trusted his eyes, the way she always had. They spent years fixing it together, even if her role was small. She handed him tools, held the light when it got dark, brought him tea when his hands were too dirty to touch the cup. She listened to his plans, his frustrations, his excitement when something finally worked. Those moments were quiet, ordinary, and precious. Sometimes they argued in that garage. About money. About time. About whether it was worth it. But even their arguments felt softer there. He would pause, wipe his hands, look at her, and remind her that this car was not just for him. It was for them. For the road trips they would take. For the days they would escape routine and just drive. And they did drive. Not often, but enough to fill her heart. Early morning rides when the roads were empty. Long talks while the engine hummed beneath them. Silence that felt comfortable, not awkward. She remembered resting her hand on the seat between them, feeling close without needing words. The car saw their younger faces reflected in its glass. It carried their laughter, their tired sighs, their shared dreams. It was there when life felt heavy and when life felt light. Over time, it became a symbol of what they built together. Slowly, carefully, with love. After he passed, the car became something else. It became a reminder that love could exist even when the person was gone. That effort did not disappear just because time moved forward. She could not bring herself to start it, let alone drive it. She was afraid that changing anything would somehow break what remained. Her son grew up around that car. He had played near it as a child, pretending it was a spaceship or a race car. He had watched his father work on it, learning patience without realizing it. She believed he understood its meaning. Not just as an object, but as a piece of family history. When her son became an adult, she saw the same careful nature in him. Responsible, thoughtful, quiet in his own way. He respected his father deeply. Or so she believed. She trusted him because trust had always been the foundation of their family. Sometimes, her son would ask about the car. Simple questions. Whether it still ran. Whether she planned to sell it someday. She always answered calmly. She said she was not ready. She said it meant too much. He would nod and say he understood. And she believed him. In her mind, there was no reason not to trust him. Family did not betray family. That was something she had believed her whole life. Mistakes could happen. Misunderstandings could happen. But betrayal felt like something distant, something that happened to other people. She imagined that one day, when she was no longer around, the car would belong to him. She pictured him caring for it the way his father did. Keeping it safe. Remembering where it came from. Passing it down, maybe, as a story more than a possession. That thought gave her peace. Knowing that something they built together would continue beyond her. It made the idea of time passing feel less frightening. On certain afternoons, when the light was soft and the house felt heavy, she sat in the garage. She pulled up an old chair and just sat there. She talked quietly, as if her husband might hear her. She told him about her days, about their son, about small things that felt important in the moment. The car listened without judgment. It did not rush her. It did not ask her to move on. It simply existed, steady and silent. She remembered one day in particular, long before illness entered their lives. He had surprised her by taking the car out without telling her. She had been annoyed at first, worried something might go wrong. When he returned, he had a smile that made her heart soften instantly. He said he just wanted to feel the road again. That smile stayed with her. It lived in the curve of her memories. It reminded her why she held on. Her trust in her son was just as strong. She believed he carried the same values they had tried to teach him. Honesty, respect, loyalty. He had never given her a reason to doubt him. Not once. When he offered to help around the house, she welcomed it. When he suggested checking on the car from time to time, she allowed it. It felt natural, safe, right. She never imagined that understanding could turn into distance. That care could turn into something else. The idea simply did not fit into her world. For her, the car was love shaped into metal. It was patience shaped into effort. It was marriage shaped into motion. And she believed, with quiet certainty, that her son saw it the same way. That belief wrapped around her heart like a warm blanket. It protected her from doubt, from fear, from questions she did not know how to ask. She trusted him completely, and in that trust she felt secure, unaware that trust, once broken, never breaks loudly. It breaks softly, in silence, in moments that seem harmless at first. For now, the car remained where it had always been, waiting, holding years of love within its stillness. And she continued her life believing that some things, especially family, were unbreakable. He had not planned to make the decision all at once. It came together slowly, quietly, the way many bad choices do. At first, it was only a thought he pushed aside. Then it returned again and again, stronger each time, until it felt less like a thought and more like a solution. His life looked good from the outside. A steady job. A clean home. A wife who cared deeply about appearances and comfort. Friends who posted photos of trips, dinners, and new things online. But behind closed doors, the pressure never stopped. Bills arrived every month. Expenses grew faster than his income. Conversations about money always ended the same way, with tension hanging in the air. His wife tried not to complain, but he heard it anyway. The small sighs when scrolling through her phone. The quiet comments about how others seemed to live so freely. The way her mood lifted when she talked about travel, about places far away from routine and responsibility. Paris came up often. At first, it was just a dream. A city she had always wanted to see. A place that felt romantic, exciting, different from their daily grind. Over time, the dream turned into a plan. Dates were discussed. Hotels were bookmarked. Photos were saved. All without a clear answer to the same question. How would they pay for it? He told himself he could handle it. That something would work out. He always believed that. But deep down, he knew the numbers did not add up. That was when the car entered his thoughts. At first, he felt ashamed for even considering it. The car was not just property. It was history. It was his parents' shared effort, their pride. He had grown up watching it slowly come back to life under his father's care. He knew what it meant to his mother now. But the thought kept returning. The car was valuable, rare, well kept, and unused. He told himself that it sat in the garage doing nothing. That it deserved to be driven, not hidden away. That money sitting in metal form was still money. His wife never directly asked him to sell it. She did not need to. She spoke about practicality often. About how memories were important, but life required action. About how holding on to the past too tightly could stop people from moving forward. He listened. And slowly he agreed. He convinced himself that his mother would understand. She always had. She was calm. Reasonable. She trusted him. That trust made the decision feel easier, not harder. He told himself he would explain it later. After the trip. After things felt more stable. After she had time to accept it. One afternoon, while his mother rested, he stood alone in the garage. He pulled the cover back just enough to see the smooth curve of the car's body. Dust floated in the air as sunlight slipped through the small window. He placed his hand on the hood. The metal was cool. Solid. Silent. For a moment, guilt rose in his chest. He remembered his father's smile. His mother's quiet presence nearby. The years that lived inside this space. Then he thought about bills. About expectations. About proving he could provide the life his wife wanted. The guilt faded just enough. He contacted a dealership the next day. Not the one closest to the house. One farther away. One that asked fewer questions. He sent photos. Documents. Details. The response came quickly. The car was worth more than he expected. That number changed everything. He did not tell his mother. Not then. Not later. Each day he delayed felt easier than the day before. The paperwork moved fast. Faster than his thoughts could catch up. A date was set. Arrangements were made. On the morning the car was taken away, he told his mother he had errands to run. She nodded, trusting, distracted by her routine. The truck arrived quietly. No noise. No attention. Just business. He watched as the car was loaded, still covered, still silent. The garage felt instantly emptier. Something inside him shifted, but he pushed it down. He told himself it was practical. Necessary. Smart. That night, he booked flights to Paris. His wife was thrilled. She hugged him, thanked him, smiled the way she had not smiled in a long time. That smile felt like proof that he had done the right thing. When he lay in bed later, Sleep did not come easily. His mind replayed moments he did not want to face. His mother's calm trust. The way she never questioned him. He reassured himself again. She would understand. She always did. In his version of the future, the truth would come out gently. Over tea. With time to talk. With explanations ready. For now, he chose silence. And silence, he believed, was harmless. Something felt different, though she could not name it. At first, it was only a faint feeling, the kind people often ignore. A pause that lasted half a second too long. A change in tone that could easily be explained away. She told herself she was imagining things. Age made people sensitive, she thought. It made them notice shadows that were not really there. Her son's visits became less frequent. Not gone completely, just spaced farther apart. When he did come by, he stayed shorter than usual. He checked his phone often. His mind seemed elsewhere. She told herself that was normal. Adults were busy. Life pulled people in many directions. Their phone calls changed too. They still spoke every week, but the conversations felt lighter, almost rushed. He talked quickly, filling the silence before she could ask questions. When she mentioned coming by or asked when she might see him next, his answers were vague. Soon. Things are busy. We'll plan something. She accepted those answers without pushing. She had never been one to demand attention. She believed that love did not need constant proof. Sometimes, she noticed a strange excitement in his voice. Not joy exactly, but energy. As if he were holding on to something he wanted to share, but could not. She wondered if it was work-related. Or maybe plans with his wife. Young people had dreams, after all. She smiled quietly and wished him well. On quiet afternoons, she walked past the garage door more than usual. She never opened it. She did not feel ready. Instead, she rested her hand against the wood for a moment, as if checking that something solid still existed on the other side. The house remained calm. Too calm. She filled her days the same way she always had. Cleaning. Reading. Watching the street from her window. But her thoughts wandered more often now. She found herself replaying recent conversations in her mind, listening for something she might have missed. Once, during a call, her son mentioned travel. Just briefly. She asked where. He laughed softly and said nothing was decided yet. She did not ask more. She did not want to seem intrusive. Trust, she believed, meant giving space. At night, she sometimes dreamed of her husband. Not dramatic dreams. Simple ones. Sitting together. Driving slowly. Laughing at small things. She woke with a strange mix of comfort and sadness. The garage stayed closed. Days turned into weeks. Dust settled quietly. She noticed that her son avoided the topic whenever she spoke about memories. He listened politely but changed the subject soon after. She thought maybe it was painful for him. Grief looked different for everyone. One afternoon, she prepared extra tea without realizing it. When she noticed the second cup, she paused, staring at it for a long time. She felt foolish, then tired. She poured it out and rinsed the cup, her hands shaking slightly. She told herself not to read into things. Her neighbors asked about her son from time to time. She answered kindly, saying he was doing well. She believed it. On one visit, he stood near the garage door longer than usual. He did not touch it. He did not open it. He simply stood there, his shoulders tense, his gaze unfocused. She watched him quietly from the hallway, unsure why her chest felt tight. He left soon after. That night, she sat alone in the living room, the lights dim, the television playing softly. She barely followed the story on the screen. Her mind drifted. Silence had become familiar. It wrapped around her life like a soft blanket. But now, it felt heavier. Thicker. She reminded herself that change was natural. Children grew. Lives shifted. Distance did not always mean loss. And so she waited. The truth stayed hidden, protected by avoidance and guilt. The garage door remained closed. And she continued to trust, believing that what mattered most would never be taken without her knowing. The phone rang in the middle of the afternoon, a sound that felt louder than usual in the quiet house. She was sitting by the window, folding clean laundry with slow, careful movements. For a moment, she let it ring. Calls were rare these days. Most people preferred messages. Eventually, she reached for the phone and answered. The voice on the other end was calm and polite. A man. Professional. He introduced himself clearly and explained where he was calling from. She listened, nodding without realizing it, even though he could not see her. At first, she thought he had the wrong number. He mentioned the car. Her hand tightened around the phone. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. She asked him to repeat himself, her voice steady but thin. He did, slower this time, careful with his words. He explained that he owned a dealership. That a classic vehicle connected to her address had recently been brought to him. That there were some details that did not quite match. He said her name gently, as if afraid it might break something fragile. She told him there must be a mistake. There was a pause on the line. Not awkward. Respectful. He said he understood. That these things happen sometimes. But something about the paperwork made him uncomfortable. The ownership history. The timing. He wanted to be certain everything was clear before moving forward. Her mind struggled to keep up. Words floated past her. Disconnected. Ownership. Sale. Confirmation. She asked one simple question. What sale? The silence that followed felt endless. The man did not rush. He did not raise his voice. He explained that the car had been sold recently. That her son had handled the process. That everything appeared legal, but not complete. Her chest tightened. The phone felt heavier in her hand. She leaned back into the chair, suddenly aware of how tired she felt. She told him she had not given permission. Another pause. He apologized softly. He said that was exactly why he was calling. He said he believed in doing things the right way. He did not want to cause pain, only to avoid it. Her thoughts raced. Images flooded her mind. The closed garage door. The missed visits. The strange excitement in her son's voice. Pieces she had ignored now forced themselves together. She felt cold. She asked if the car was still there. Yes, he said. For now. She thanked him. She did not know why, but she did. Old habits of politeness held her upright when everything else felt like it was falling apart. When the call ended, the house returned to silence. But it was not the same silence she had known. This one was sharp, loud, unforgiving. She sat very still, staring at the wall. Her heart beat slowly, heavily, as if each beat carried weight. Confusion came first. Surely there was a misunderstanding. A mistake. Her son would never do something like that. Not without telling her. Then disbelief followed. A quiet denial that wrapped itself around her thoughts. She stood up suddenly, her movements shaky, and walked toward the garage. Her hand hovered over the handle. She did not open the door. Fear crept in next. Not loud fear. Not panic. Just a deep, sinking dread that settled in her stomach. She returned to the living room and sat down again, her knees weak. She pressed her hands together, trying to steady them. She replayed the man's words again and again. Sold. Paperwork. Confirmation. Her son's face appeared in her mind. The way he smiled. The way he avoided her eyes. The way she trusted him without question. A soft sound escaped her lips, something between a breath and a whisper. She covered her mouth with her hand. Her world had not shattered loudly. There was no crash, no scream, no dramatic moment. It shifted. The ground beneath her beliefs moved just enough to make her lose balance. She sat there as the afternoon light faded, unsure what to do next. unsure who she could trust, unsure how something so solid could feel suddenly uncertain. The phone lay silent on the table. And behind the closed garage door, the truth waited. She did not sleep that night. She lay in bed with her eyes open, listening to the familiar sounds of the house, now unfamiliar in meaning. Every memory seemed to replay itself differently. Trust, once so quiet and solid, now felt fragile. In the morning, she made tea but did not drink it. The cup grew cold in her hands. By afternoon, she had made her decision. Waiting would only make the weight heavier. She called her son. Her voice was calm when he answered. Too calm. She asked him to come over. She did not explain why. He hesitated, just for a moment, then agreed. When he arrived, she noticed everything. The way he avoided her eyes. The way his shoulders were tight. He knew. They sat across from each other in the living room. The space between them felt wider than the room itself. She spoke first. She asked him about the car. He froze. There was no anger in her voice. No raised tone. Just a simple question. That made it harder for him. At first, he tried to explain around it. He talked about responsibility. About stress. About doing what he thought was best. She listened. Quietly. Patiently. Then she asked him directly if he had sold it. He nodded. The word yes never came out of his mouth, but the truth did anyway. He told her everything. About the dealership. About the money. About the trip. About choosing not to tell her because he feared her reaction. He said it was practical. That word landed heavily in the room. She asked him if practicality erased permission. If need replaced honesty. He did not answer. He spoke about providing for his family. About wanting to give his wife experiences. About feeling behind compared to others. His reasons sounded small as he said them out loud. Even he seemed to hear it. She asked him if he ever thought about what the car meant. He said yes. She asked him if that thought had stopped him. He looked down. That silence said more than words ever could. She told him the car was not just metal. It was time. It was effort. It was years of shared sacrifice. It was promises kept quietly, without witnesses. She told him that legacy was not about money. It was about respect. About asking. About understanding what belonged to others, even within a family. He grew defensive then. He said times were different now. That holding on to the past did not pay bills. That he believed she would forgive him. That hurt more than the sale itself. She told him forgiveness was not automatic. That trust was not something you used up assuming it would refill on its own. She told him secrecy was a choice. One he made every day. He stayed silent. He tried to apologize. The words came out tangled. Rushed. Afraid. She accepted that he was sorry. But she told him sorry did not rebuild what had been broken. They sat in silence again. This time, it felt final. She looked at her son and saw both the child she raised and the stranger he had become. The gap between generations stood clear. Different values. Different measures of what mattered. She told him she needed time. He nodded. He understood that much. When he left, the house felt emptier than it ever had. She did not cry. She simply sat there, holding the truth in her hands, feeling its full weight. The days that followed felt longer than they should have. Time moved, but slowly, as if it were unsure of where to go next. The house stayed quiet, yet the silence was different now. It no longer felt calm. It felt aware. She moved through her routine without purpose. Tea was made and forgotten. Books were opened and closed after a few pages. Her hands worked, but her mind stayed elsewhere. Grief had always lived with her. It had settled in after her husband's passing and learned the shape of her days. She had accepted it as part of life. But now, grief had layers. It carried betrayal within it. That weight was heavier. She realized that the pain was not only about the car. The car was only the door through which something deeper had entered. The real loss was trust. The belief that her son understood what mattered to her. The comfort of knowing her values had been passed on. At night, she thought about the years she had spent protecting memories, holding them gently, believing they were safe within family. Now she knew safety could be taken quietly. Her son felt the distance immediately. Calls went unanswered. Messages received short replies. When he did speak to her, the warmth they once shared was gone. Not replaced by anger. Just absence. He tried to apologize again. The words sounded the same each time. Sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought it would be okay. But meaning well did not undo harm. He began to understand that what he had taken could not be returned with money. Even if the car came back, something else was gone. Something that could not be bought. His wife noticed the change too. The tension. The quiet arguments. The way joy from the trip faded quickly. Photos were taken, smiles were shown, but something felt hollow underneath it all. The vacation ended, but the damage stayed. Family gatherings felt different. Conversations stayed on the surface. Laughter felt careful. Everyone sensed the shift, even if no one spoke about it openly. He realized that by choosing secrecy, he had rewritten the rules of their relationship. Trust was no longer assumed. It would have to be earned again, slowly, if at all. For her, forgiveness did not come easily. Not because she wanted punishment, but because healing required honesty she no longer felt. She learned that love could exist alongside distance. That boundaries were not cruelty. They were protection. Her life continued, changed but steady. She carried her memories with a new awareness. Some things, once broken, never returned to their original shape. And that understanding became the true consequence. One that would follow them all, long after the money was spent and the car was gone. Morning light entered the house softly, as it always had. Nothing outside had changed. The street looked the same. The air carried the same calm sounds. Yet inside her, something had settled into place. She moved through her day slowly, but with intention. There was no rush anymore. No need to explain herself to anyone. The weight she had been carrying began to shift, not disappear, but change shape. Acceptance did not arrive as peace. It arrived as clarity. She understood now that love did not mean endless sacrifice. It did not mean silence. It did not mean allowing herself to be hurt just to keep things calm. For years, she had been the quiet one. The listener. The one who adapted. That role had served her well in many ways. It had helped her build a marriage rooted in patience and care. But that same quiet had made it easy for others to decide on her behalf. She would not allow that again. She spoke to her son one final time about the matter. Not with anger. Not with blame. With honesty. She told him she loved him. That would never change. But she also told him that trust now had conditions. That access to her life required respect, not assumption. He listened. Truly listened this time. Whether he fully understood or not did not matter. The boundary was not a request. It was a statement. When the call ended, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. Later that day, she opened the garage door for the first time in a long while. The space felt larger without the car. Emptier. But also honest. She stepped inside and stood where it used to rest. She closed her eyes and remembered her husband's laughter. His patience. The way he believed in building things slowly, carefully, with purpose. She did not feel anger there. Only gratitude. She decided to honor him in her own way. Not by holding on to objects, but by protecting the meaning behind them. By choosing dignity over silence. By choosing herself. That evening, she placed his old watch in a small wooden box and set it in a drawer. Not hidden. Just kept. Her life would continue. Quieter, perhaps. smaller in some ways, stronger in others. She knew now that standing alone did not mean being unloved. It meant being whole. And in that understanding, she found her peace.